Hey, how you doing, everyone? Welcome back to Big Frog's 4x4. This week I'm going to show you how I install, without a shop press, joints into a front drive shaft for the Jeep Cherokee. This would be the same for pretty much any U-joint style drive shaft or axle shaft. Pretty much the same idea. I do it the same way for all of them. Unfortunately, the audio on it got messed up in downloading, so I'm going to have to do a voiceover and just kind of walk through and talk you through a voiceover of the video and show you how I do it. And I also lost the very first clip of the video, and obviously I could, but I'm not going to take the axle back apart and take a chance of damaging the U-joint just to get the video of putting the first cap in. So this is on the Yukon gear. Chromoly axle shafts for the Cherokee. There's a lot more videos for this to come. I have Adams drive shafts coming, front and rear, advanced adapter, slip yoke eliminator for the transfer case. So this is the first of the series of the how-tos. It's not all video is going to be all how-to. It's going to be kind of a summary of how I did it, because really there's so many videos out there of different things on Cherokees, your bleeping Jeep and busted knuckle and a whole bunch of other YouTube channels. If you want to see in-depth videos on how to do, check out their channels as well. They do a good job of explaining everything. And due to time crunch and trying to get this done before my son comes home from the military, so as a vehicle to drive, I didn't have time to do all the filming and all that kind of stuff and moving the camera. So pretty much I did the job, shot the video, some while doing it, and it's going to be after. So please stay tuned. So this video is going to be putting the U-joints and the Yukon axles. So you want to start off with carefully inserting the U-joint into the ears of the axle. And then I press in one cap at a time. And obviously, like I said, I missed the first clip, the first cap. But then I slowly slide the U-joint over to the other side where there's no cap, leaving the cap side, the U-joint in the cap, just enough to keep the bearings stationary. You don't want the bearings to fall out as you press it in. So at this point, like I said, I just slid the U-joint over just enough so that the caps both have the U-joint in to hold the bearings in place. Then I place it in the vise. You're going to want a pretty large vise. Doesn't take a lot, just big enough to get the axle into it. I think this one opens 6 inches or so. Then I basically just crank it down until I can't crank it anymore. Now you can see I'm tightening by hand. Then I'm going to take a hammer and just tap the vise. Now, like I said, I'm not hitting really hard. I'm just tapping it. And that just kind of gives it a small jarring to fully seat the caps onto the U-joint. When you do this, you don't want to hit it obviously like too hard, and you don't want to drive the cap in too far, because then that's going to cause excessive pressure inside the cap, more on the bearing, the seals and stuff. So you just want to go until you can get to the point where you can get the C-clips, the lock clips, onto the snap rings onto the U-joint. You don't want to go any further than that. Here you can see I'm just still fully seating it. Just enough, just a little bit of time, just enough for me to get those snap rings in. Here I'm popping them and snapping them by hand. It's usually fairly simple. You just put them in the slot and push them down into the slot, and the snap ring will snap in. Alright, we'll put the other side in. Now remove the caps, and you can put your outer axle part shaft on. Just feed one side in and then the other side. And here again, I put one cap in at a time, so I can slide this axle over, slide the cap in, making sure that the U-joint slides into the cap without messing up the needle bearings. As you can see right here, something didn't feel quite right, so I'm not forcing it on. It's not quite lining up. That should slide on fairly easy. Something just isn't quite right. Thought maybe I had a messed up needle bearing in there. Maybe something slid, but it didn't. There we go. So now you can see with the axle slid over to the U-joint, I can start the cap onto the joint. And then we can start to press it in with the vise. There again, you just kind of work it a little bit at a time. And then I'll also take the hammer again, and I do this for each of the U-joints. I'll take the hammer once I get to the point where I can't crank it by hand. The reason I like to do it this way is because a 20-ton shop press, or any kind of shop press, it applies more pressure than you can feel because you're just pumping a hydraulic jack. And you can easily either jam a U-joint, because it should slide in easy, but you can't feel that on a press. Or if you're doing stock axles, or smaller axles, or a drive shaft, or something like that, you could potentially bend the ears, and then you're never going to get your U-joints in place. You're never going to get your lock rings in. Alright, now we're going to try to put the other cap in. Now you have to slide the axle over enough that you can get the U-joint started on the cap started on the U-joint. So you'll see here, I'm going to try to carefully just slide that over. I want that cap and U-joint that I just installed to stay installed just a little bit. You want to make sure that axle stays in the bearings inside the cap on the other side. That way, when you go to press this one in, it doesn't catch and jam the other side of U-joints. Here again, this is when I usually do it in a vise. I started doing it in a vise. I used to use a press. There's a lot less chance of causing any kind of damage to, or having one of your needle bearings pop out or get jammed or cockeyed in there. And you won't notice it in a press until you get it all pressed together and you go to move the joint and it's tight. I mean, really tight. And eventually, I mean, if you installed that, it'll wear the U-joint. It'll wear that bearing. But then everything's going to wear out. And you're going to have tight steering, and it's never a good thing. So whenever possible, try to install U-joints by hand. I just find this works a lot easier, and I've never had a single issue with bearings getting stuck into caps or things getting cocked out of place or whatever. As you can see, I do the same thing. I just make sure that the vise is pressing on the cap and not on the axle itself. And you see, I'm not hitting it hard. It's just a jarring motion, kind of like when you have to knock a ball joint loose from the knuckle. Right, you hit it and it jars it. Well, in this case, you don't hit it that hard. You're just tapping it, causing a vibration, and it'll kick it in. And it'll bump itself in. And then, like I said, you stop as soon as you can see that you can get your snap ring in. That is all the tighter you need it. The gloves on, I couldn't get my fingers in there, so I pressed it down the rest of the way with the pick. I should have taken my glove off, but the pick was sitting there, and it's cold. Alright, get the other one out and install that one. And the Yukon axles, they come with a Spicer U-joint. Probably, in my opinion, one of the best U-joints you can buy in the market. Lastly, you just want to move everything around once it's all installed and make sure it's all free with no binding. Thanks for watching Big Frog's 4x4. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, hit that thumbs up. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't like the video. Leave a comment. Hit that bell if you want notified as each video as it comes out. And as always, God bless.